You ever wonder what would happen if a cowboy-obsessed man from before the war started getting ghoulified and had his son taken away from him by an evil subterranean organization, but this time on the East Coast? We'll find that out in this video as we ask ourselves, can you beat Fallout 4 as Cooper Howard? We'll be playing on very hard difficulty with no companions allowed. As the Ghoul, I'm not allowed to wear power armor, my weaponry will consist of only a lever-action rifle and a .44 pistol, and my clothes will have to somewhat resemble his cowboy outfit. I started the game and tried to make my character look as fucked up as possible when it came to radiation burns, yet he didn't look nearly enough like beef jerky to pass as a ghoul. But since in this story the bombs just fell, I guess it makes sense that he was only just starting to ghoulify. When we heard the news that civilization was gonna be dead in 2 minutes, I made my way out of the house, closing the door on my wife and child out of habit, because we weren't raised in a barn, you know. Arriving at the vault, I got distracted by watching a vertebrate land when the nuclear bomb hit. Now, I knew you shouldn't look directly into the blast slide, yet I couldn't help myself and burned away my retinas. Among other things. Heading into the vault, I proceeded to get frozen like an old computer, watched my wife get blasted by another dude, who proceeded to take my baby, my house, and my dog. Thirsting for revenge and committing to stopping at nothing to get my son back, I took my wife's wedding ring as a memento and beat a lot of red roaches off of me. Wasting no time to exit the vault, I jumped through the gate and assigned my perk points. I put 8 points plus 1 from the special book in Sanctuary into Endurance to greatly increase my HP gain per level up and to pick the Ghoulish perk. It only made sense. After that, I put 10 points into Charisma so I could intimidate random enemies and later order them to attack their friends. The rest of the perk points were mostly for other necessities later. Leaving Sanctuary, I spotted a nice coat and cowboy hat, which I immediately took for myself and didn't change for the rest of the run, cause we commit to the cowboy trip. Though that coat, oh that damn coat, it would come to haunt me later, just you wait. After donning my cowboy outfit, I needed a weapon. So the first thing I did was grab a .44 pistol with 5 whole bullets, which would have to last me until I found a lever-action rifle. So I immediately used all 5 bullets, not even 10% of the way into getting my rifle, against the Mirelurks, because I wanted some early money and quest XP. When arriving at the excavation site, I also leveled up, so I put a perk point into Ghoulish because roleplay. After completing the quest there, I put a point into Idiot Savant for more XP. While making my arduous journey to the most northeastern part of the map, I came across a settlement that needed help. So I promptly ignored them and stole all of their crops as well, to only exacerbate their problems even more. Finally arriving at my destination, I took a payment for tracking the local resident's daughter down, which I'd never complete, and proceeded to take a leisure boat ride to Far Harbor. Arriving in Far Harbor, I leveled up and put a point to Intimidation, giving me a 1 in 3 chance to pacify an enemy to later execute, after all their more steadfast friends have kicked the bucket. After sitting through a very long fight between the locals and a bunch of mutated frogs, I looted their dead friends' corpses, sold their belongings and bought myself a lever-action rifle with a bunch of ammunition. The lever-action rifle for some reason always loads 5 bullets when reloading, so I tried the entire playthrough to shoot it empty before reloading, so that the animation made sense. With my guns acquired, I left Far Harbor to its fate and shot up a bunch of mole rats, which leveled me up, where I started making my way to Gunnut to upgrade my guns somewhat. Most needed were glow sights for my lever-action rifle, cause I couldn't see shit through the default sights. Moving on, I robbed and intimidated Wolfgang and Simone and decided to help Preston and the gang. Not because I wanted to, but because I like XP. After trying to be as much of a dick as possible to Preston, I took the power arm as the quest demanded, jumped off the roof and immediately dumped it because of the challenge. The raiders there weren't much of a problem, but that Deathclaw sure did have its filthy way with me. Several times, because even though I hid inside a building, it managed to squeeze itself through some tight openings. Are we sure these things aren't derived from raccoons? One time it even backhand bitch slapped me to death, which was just rude. Nevertheless, I eventually gunned it down and put a point to the gun nut, which allowed me to increase the damage of my guns, add glow sights and increase the size of my pistol shaft. While killing some mole rats at the Starlight Drive-In, I put a level into Bloody Mess because some kills in the show were quite gloriously gory. From there I made my way over to the Old North Church so I could join the despicable hippies of the railroad, since they seem to be the best candidates for me to manipulate for my own gain. Plus, I get my filthy little mitts on some ballistic weave, allowing me to survive... well, just to survive, preferably. Inside, I solved a very easy puzzle and, because I hadn't done anything of note, Deacon had no clue who I was. But in true Gary Stu fashion, he seemed to have a hard-on for me all the same.
I like your style. I got a real good feeling about him.
So naturally, I'm taken in by the railroad. Yay. Before I did anything else, I put a point into Rifleman and figured it was high time to search out some shops for .44 pistol ammo. So I discovered Good Neighbor First, where I watched a man get brutally murdered in front of me, and where I got spontaneous PTSD when I saw Cleo's trade menu. Secondly, I waltzed into Diamond City, where I trolled Myrna and discovered that during my travels I must have been hit in the head because it was gone! Now, I know ghouls have regenerative powers, but this is ridiculous, especially when it grew back about 5 seconds later. Having marked the shops, it was time to get my grubby little hands on that sweet, succulent ballistic weave. Though to get it, I needed to complete several quests for the railroad, so off to work I went. First, Deacon wanted me to help him fetch a MacGuffin from their old HQ, but before that, Deacon imparts the inscrutable knowledge onto me that an arrow drawn on the wall means go this way. Honestly, it's a miracle their organization didn't spontaneously disintegrate with these high levels of IQ. After killing some ghouls, we met up with an agent whom we extorted for supplies and then convinced to sacrifice his life for the cause by saying we'd be singing summer camp songs about his bravery. Getting real hard about summer camp, he agreed, but since he was taking a sweet ass time, I opted to storm the synths myself. Though I really didn't need to do much, as most of the enemies sort of blew themselves up on their own minds. Once inside, I was confronted by the illusion of choice, because it turned out that frontally storming the enemy was never really an option, because the elevator no work. So we were forced to take the covert, way better guarded back entrance instead. Inside, I blasted my way through a lot of Institute synths, shooting them wherever, feet, head, it didn't matter. I myself got blasted by synths here a few times as well, but it's all in the interest of getting that sweet ballistic weave later to stop that from happening in the future. While being punished for cheesing a synth trying to fuse with a door, I level up and improve Idiot Savant for more XP. Arriving at the vault door, I retrieve the MacGuffin and get some caps in the shape of a Walter PPK. After blasting the last synths and powering up the elevator, I returned to the railroad, picked the only not lame nickname, ransacked their HQ of almost everything they had, said hello to the core members of the railroad, including Tinker Twat, whom I hate so dearly, and delivered off the MacGuffin. For the next quest, I first had to retrieve a message manually, because merely telling me what I had to do would have just been too damn convenient for these cooks. After that, I went to Bunker Hill, where I tried my best to blow the agent's cover by blurting out things like, "Hey, you with the railroad?" The Institute unfortunately wasn't paying attention, and the preceding escort mission was pretty uneventful. Until I shot at a glowing one on a raft, whom surprisingly didn't stand for my shit and tried to bitch slap me. Fortunately, the escort synth decided to go mano a mano with the thing, resulting in me being able to shoot off its leg and finishing it off. When leveling up, I picked chem resistance so I could do a lot more drugs without getting addicted. When returning to the railroad HQ, I got confirmation of my hatred of Tinker Twat as he proceeded to blow someone up while experimenting, and completed my quest. With my new perk get, the next order of business was to gather a large shipment of drugs, which would be incredibly important later. So I watched the guy get his ass kicked by his wife's lover, proceeded to kill said lover, found out where a drug deal was taking place because of a note on his corpse, and proceeded to bust the drug deal, shooting the triggerman, offing Trish, and taking 60 hits worth of jet. Next, the hippies sent me to a hospital to check on their friends, and spoiler alert, they dead! But along the way I was ambushed by my feral brethren, where I leveled up and started making my way towards armorer to increase the effect of the soon in my possession ballistic weave. Inside the hospital there were raiders everywhere. During my first attempt I was blown up by a rocket launcher. The next time around one raider hit me so incredibly hard that I was almost swallowed by the all-consuming void. Escaping the void's clutches I took great care to first off Rocket Man. Having killed most of the raiders, I witnessed a god among men, went evil Batman on a raider and proceeded to commit to killing a Deathclaw for no other reason than to prove to myself that I could have just left with the elevator I came in from, but I went for it anyway. After dying 4 times I finally managed to kill the thing by standing far enough away on the cage to not get hit, yet close enough that it didn't run away. Completing this quest I was forced to build 2 turrets at the Starlight Drive-In, which I had already cleared before. So a few fast travels later I was finally given the quest that would unlock ballistic weave for me. Making my way up a nauseating fire escape I entered the high-rise and turned 2 gunners into blood confetti. The second one requiring a critical hit to save my life, because energy weapons hurt. A lot. But not to worry, these problems should all be over after this quest. Securing the quest cache I unlocked the ability to make ballistic weave, and skipping with joy make my way over to the nearest armor workbench where...
What? What the fuck?
No. No. No! This can't be happening! It doesn't work for all clothing! What the fuck? I was under the impression it could be done for any clothing item. What do you mean? Disheartened by this shocking turn of events that nobody saw coming, I decided that this would change nothing. We roll with the punches around here and we improvise, adapt, overcome. The new game plan would be to use the obscene amounts of jet to brute force our way through tough situations. And believe me, there will be some tough situations. Pissed off at the railroad, I felt like it was high time to focus on the main quest for a while, starting with Vault 140 to free my detective. The triggerman inside went down easily enough, though my lack of protection remained a problem. So, after making Dino slump over like a singular sheet of paper and freeing Detective Nick, I put a skill point into toughness to reduce ballistic damage, though the more important energy damage resistance perk was locked behind a high level of perception, so that was gonna be a problem. After Nick and I off the triggerman inside the vault, we arrived at the boss room where I somehow managed to fail a charisma check with 10 points in charisma.
Skinny's no good for you, Darla. You put a bullet in him, and I just might let you go.
What kind of girl do you think I am? Kill him, Skinny!
No matter though, it just means more blood for the blood gods. I immediately inhaled a bunch of jet, blew Darla's head away, unsatisfyingly domed both Skinny and the guard whose heads don't explode, and executed the last triggerman whom I intimidated. Having freed Nick, it was time to search for Kellogg, the dude who blasted my wife and stole my son. So we went over to his house, but we needed a key, so I persuaded the receptionist for said key with my incredible riz, ransacked Kellogg's house as is usual, and ignored my dog because I already knew exactly where to find Kellogg due to knowledge of the future. After grinding Mama Murphy for some XP, I leveled up and increased my pistol damage by 20%. Making my way to Fort Hagen where Kellogg was hiding, I encountered Ricky the railroad agent again, which I'd never seen before, so I thought I'd just mention it here. Inside Fort Hagen there were oodles of synth just littered about the place, all carrying energy weapons which hurt a lot. Also, Dogmeat decided to come along for the first part of the ride since he couldn't find the exit when I told him to piss off. Blasting through even more stints, I reached an armory where I was surprised by the generosity of the game, where it gave you a fat man and a mini nuke in case you were woefully unprepared and wanted to atomize Kellogg. When I reached the boss room, I inhaled all the drugs, killed off his guards, and got a very satisfying kill shot on Kellogg as his head exploded in slow motion. Glorious. Seeing a weird looking electro embryo on the floor, I did the only sensible thing and put it in my back pocket. We also found out that our son was inside the illustrious Institute, but we vowed to stop at nothing to get our boy back, and by Jesus will not deviate from our path. Arriving outside, I saw a massive blimp arrive, which would become a sizable problem later. Back at Sanctuary, I repurposed Kellogg's legendary .44 pistol for myself and removed the bull barrel for a more western look. Back at Nick's, we came to the same conclusion that we used the electro embryo to look inside Kellogg's mind for clues on how to get inside the Institute. When I got to Memory Probe Incorporated, Dr. Amari recognized me as being part of the railroad, meaning that she was a filthy hippie as well. Good to know. As is tradition, I bolted it through the memory sequence, discovered that the Institute used teleportation to get in and out, and that I can find the escaped scientist Virgil in the glowing sea. When the memory sequence was complete, I spammed the TV to let me out of it. With my destination set, I took a bunch of Red X and Red away from Sanctuary, where Mama Murphy downloaded the cheat code for me to use later, and made my way to the glowing sea. While inside the glowing sea, I encountered a red scorpion, and then another red scorpion, and then another red scorpion, and I snuck around a few groups of red scorpions as well. Is it me, or was that a lot of red scorpions? Anyways, when I reached the crater, there were a bunch of religious radiation worshippers settled inside, so after getting the information I needed, I proceeded to off them all, merely for the fact that I don't like them. With them out of the way, I reached Virgil's cave relatively smoothly, but there was one Deathclaw at the entrance, which eventually got stuck behind a rock, making my life a lot easier, though when I killed it, it got swallowed up by the earth. Fearing that the earth might try to swallow me too, like the void tried before, I made my way into the nearest cave, which is also where Virgil was hiding. Virgil told me that to get inside the Institute I needed to kill a super synth for a special chip, so off to Green Tech Genetics I went. First I leveled up my rifleman skill for more damage and armor penetration, and then proceeded to go to town on the gunners occupying the building. When I got to the dreaded rocket launcher section, I blew up the mine and intimidated the rocket launcher guy, whom I got to surrender. Not taking any chances, I immediately shot him dead. Proceeding ever onwards, I got a very satisfying slow-mo kill on one guy, followed by me taking a few doses of jet to clear the room after. Arriving at the super synth, I used the Mama Murphy cheat code to make it self-terminate and got the chip I needed. After which I gunned down the gunners since they were actively fighting me, making me feel very cranky. I also left the trapped synth trapped because she really wasn't my problem. With the chip in hand, I went to the railroad to have it decoded, where my favorite character took an eternity to get the job done. After this, I went to see Virgil for the last time, got the schematics for building a teleporter, and decided that now was the time to declare war against the Brotherhood by killing off Dance and the gang. Cause
Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
After killing Dance and the gang, I was rewarded with a level up and picked Cannibal. Cause it would be a shame to let all of that ass jerky go to waste now, wouldn't it? Feeling real good about my life choices, I built a teleporter with the help of the railroad hippies and put my life in the hands of the lunatic. This was obviously a terrible idea since he immediately broke the damn thing and guys, can we just shut it off and fix it? You know, we can still try again later. No, okay, that's fine. I'm totally confident I don't get turned inside out or something. Okay, that's cool. Somehow I didn't end up dead and arrived safely inside the Institute, where I found out that the old man greeting me called Father was my son. That's definitely not confusing. With my goal of finding my son completed, I decided to simp real hard for the Institute because of my boy. So I said hello to all the top eggheads and upgraded my pistols to level 3. After the meet and greet, I was tasked with taking down a very large raider gang and return their synth leader to the Institute. So I met up with my mandatory follower and went to work. There were a lot of raiders here, tough ones as well. Using jet, fats and corner camping, I eventually managed to wither them down and witnessed the fat man operating raider blowing himself up. Getting to the raider boss, I said the code phrase and shut him down and proceeded to off the 2 guards that he had around with him using a fair bit of drugs. Back inside the Institute, it was time for the Battle of Bunker Hill to retrieve some synths, and my god, did the difficulty level spike here. See, the Brotherhood soldiers were, besides very durable, also very well equipped with high DPS weapons, including laser weaponry, which shreds through my health pool like nobody's business. After many attempts resulting in my death, I decided to take a different approach and used stealth boys to enter the cellar where the synths were hiding. Down there was only one power armor soldier who was being shot at by both synths that were on my side and railroad soldiers that for some reason kept thinking I was on their side, as I was repeatedly actively shooting them in the face. Arriving at the synths, I used the code phrase to shut them down, after which they teleported out of the basement, leaving me behind. It sure would have been nice had they beamed me up as well, since now I had to run out of an active war zone while being chased down by several vertebrates. I eventually ended up hiding in a Pulowski bomb shelter so that I too could teleport away. Having teleported back, it was decided that the Brotherhood had to be dealt with, and oh by the way, my son has 8 malaria and will die soon, so you, Papa, get to be the next Institute director. For some reason. This of course pissed off a bunch of the scientists, but for now I had to go and retrieve a beryllium agitator to upgrade the Institute's power supply. After teleporting to mass fusion, I used a good combination of drugs and intimidation to handle most situations. At this point in the playthrough, intimidation became pretty clutch every now and again, mostly whenever I managed to have a guy in power armor surrender, which kind of reminded me of a certain other Brotherhood soldier's commitment to their cause. Taking an elevator ride down, there were no armored Brotherhood soldiers to be seen, which meant that I managed to kill almost all of them by the time I arrived downstairs. When the Brotherhood blew the elevator, a power armored soldier did show up, but thanks to a successful intimidation, he gave up, allowing me to barely survive the encounter. After turning the power back on for the elevator, I made my way to the basement and got nuked with rats, even though my red X was active. If I wasn't fully ghoulified before, I certainly was now. With the agitator in my pocket, we tripped the automated security, where I first blasted off the right arm of a sentry bot, allowing me to shoot at it from the right side with impunity. Along the way, my forced companion, while weak, dealt pretty high damage since she picked up a Brotherhood of Steel laser rifle, which embarrassingly dealt more damage than I did. After we dealt with the sentry bot, the 2 assaultrons came at me, which would have meant certain death had I not been stoned off my ass with jet for the entire fight. One of them I managed to destroy before it charged its giant laser beam, but for the other one I hid in the containment room, since 2 centimeters of glass would totally stop a hyper beam of death in its tracks. Taking the last assaultron down, we made our way to the exit, where I tried to help the synths covering our escape. But after the Brotherhood started to focus me down and my health began rapidly dropping, I decided that it's been real, y'all, I'm out of here. Back in the Institute, I handed over the agitator and was tasked with recruiting a scientist from the surface who didn't want to come along with our service team. But before that, a few other scientists had taken part of the Institute hostage, so I quickly killed a few guards and passed a charisma check to defuse the situation. With that nuisance out of the way, I made my way over to Bill Nye the Science Guy, who'd hired a bunch of gunners to protect him, intimidating the opposition and pumping myself full of drugs like it was a college student party. I made quick work of the gunners. The 2 survivors who surrendered I killed afterwards, totally not because I already wanted to, but because the quest forced me to. I totally didn't find that out only when the quest message popped up after killing them, yes. Reeling from being forced to commit such terrible crimes against my will, I proceeded to mouth off against the scientist present for fucking up the mission so terribly badly, even though it totally wasn't his fault. I once more used my god tier wrist to coax the scientist into joining the Institute and returned to father. He told me to record a message to the Commonwealth about how chuffed they were about their new beryllium agitated power plant, after which I had to upgrade the local radio DJ's transmitter, which was supposed to be a puzzle, but I accidentally randomly did it first try, making me feel very accomplished. After this, I was given the honor of activating the new power plant, and was given the task to oversee the next directorate meeting as the new director. At this meeting, it was agreed upon that the Brotherhood got to go. We would achieve this by sharding out synths like nobody's business to overwhelm them, since, if this even has a real gameplay effect, I could use more metal shields a lot more than those cheap plastic bags they call soldiers having better guns, to subsequently not use because they'd get focused down and destroyed immediately. But before we would commence the massive battle against the Brotherhood, it was time to tie up some loose ends. The railroad. These filthy hippies almost got me killed with their teleporter, screwed me over big time with the ballistic fiasco, and have annoyed me with their very existence alone. I used them as a tool to get into the Institute, but with their usefulness having come to an end, it was finally time to stop them from stealing our oxygen. 'Twas a thing of beauty it was, taking them out one by one in a drug-fueled slow-mo frenzy. It was glorious. When all was said and done, I looked at the floor, littered with their corpses on display, and I felt complete and total ecstasy. Hashtag no regrets. With that loose end tied up, I leveled up for the last time, putting an extra point into intimidation so that the surrendering enemy could be set loose upon their friends. Now, however, it was time to commence the final battle. The battle against the Brotherhood and their blimp, and my god, did I die a lot here. I ran to the teleporter room, checked my vast amount of drugs, and beamed my way to the airport. First, I crammed a bunch of gulper slurry down my gob to sneak my way into the airfield base. After that, I started killing a bunch of unarmored soldiers, including Proctor Quinlan. After that, I started taking out teleportation inhibitors so that my army of cannon fodder could shield me with their bodies. I got pretty lucky with my intimidation skill, because here I got 2 power armored Brotherhood soldiers to fight for me, making the destruction of one inhibitor a piece of cake, while the other one was only being guarded by a singular Protectron. With the teleportation inhibitors dealt with, it was time to make our way over to the giant robot Liberty Prime, whom we were going to reprogram so that it would identify the Brotherhood blimp as a communist target in need of some liberty. In this section I died. A lot. Like, a lot. So much so that I threw away a bunch of footage of me dying. One time even a vertebrate crashed into me, which seemed to happen quite regularly. Like 9 out of 10 times I shot one down this playthrough. It's like they have some sort of homing beacon tuned directly to my beautiful face. During my last attempt, I was almost constantly stoned off my ass with jet and all sorts of drugs and food items that would increase my stats, damage resistance, or anything else even remotely useful. I swear to God, I'm surprised my guy didn't OD here, since, even though he might have been
a very, very large bucket of drugs,
he inhaled a small lake's worth of the stuff here. At this point, I also started almost solely relying on my .44 revolver, since it dealt more damage than my lever action rifle and it reloaded faster, which was very necessary since the Brotherhood came in with such large numbers. It reminded me of the Flood. So I needed to keep blasting as much as possible. After a grueling battle, we finally hacked Liberty Prime, saw Elder Maxon stuck behind the door, teleported out, and watched as the Brotherhood blimp took a nosedive towards the ground. With the Commonwealth safe, I returned to the Institute where my son's AIDS-ball area progressed from no noticeable effect to bedridden within a few hours. I said my goodbyes to him and assumed power over the Institute. With the game beaten, I've proven that yes, it is possible to beat the game as the GHOUL, though a lot of camps were necessary since it's pretty much turned into a no armor run. What Howard will do without a clear purpose and complete control over the Commonwealth is not known. Will he be a benevolent ruler, a passive technocrat, or has he gotten a real good taste for killing with all the violence he'd indulged in? I guess we'll never know. Thank you for watching.